All right, and welcome back to our 2021-2022 NBA previews. This version, we're going to be taking a look at the Orlando Magic. With me, as always, for NBA content is Jared Prosser, myself, Trey Dalbert. We said this a little bit off air, but the Orlando Magic, they didn't used to be interesting, and now maybe they're semi-interesting. We take a look at their season recap. They weren't a very good team, but I guess the biggest franchise altering move was the Nikola Vucevic trade that actually seems to be working out.
Yeah, they traded everything that wasn't nailed down at the deadline, essentially. Finished at 21-51. Over the course of a normal 82-game season, that's a 24-win team. So even with the extra wins, they still suck.
They probably were still in the race for the 8th seed in the East somehow, though.
Yeah, but they've been doing that for about 5 years and not getting anywhere, which is why they were the least interesting team in the league. But
still probably in the mix for the 8.
No, definitely not. They are not that good. But yeah, overall, 26th in defense, which, considering their personnel wasn't bad. Second to last in offense, second to last in net rating. Essentially, whatever could go wrong last season did go wrong. Even before the fire sale of all the veterans, they lost, of course, Jonathan Isaac was going to be out, but then they lost Markel Fultz, who was looking really good in the season prior. They lost him to an ACL as well. Of course, they got rid of Vucevic, they got rid of Fournier, they got rid of Gordon, which was their core essentially. So now they've got a really interesting core of young players. I'm not sure there's a star amongst them, but at least there is something to look forward to in Orlando.
Moving on here to the offseason, they do pick up Robin Lopez in free agency, but I guess the big storyline here is the draft that Orlando seemed to get here, because most of the time it seems like Orlando, they just miss out on that franchise guy in the draft, but hopefully this year that man is Jalen Suggs to really turn the corner here.
Well, even this season, it was a 4-player draft and they fell 5th and everyone went, that's so Orlando. But Toronto did them a solid by taking Barnes, which may turn out to be a great pick, but it left one of those, quote unquote, big 4 to Orlando in Jalen Suggs. But you're burying the lead. The biggest thing they did at the draft was uniting the Wagner brothers. Mo and Franz together at last. It's God's will, my friend. It's God's will.
Big happy family.
Look, it was great today. I saw that they substituted one in for the other, and I thought, this is poetry. This is fantastic. They did also bring in Robin Lopez, as you said. Sadly, he won't play much on this team because I love watching him play, and he might be the best center on this roster. But he will be there as a veteran mentor, as someone to, I suppose, supplement the rotations when there's injuries or players are completely out of form. Really good veteran mentor, but he won't play as much as he deserves to. As far as the outs, well, they got rid of them all at the trade deadline, so there wasn't really any significant outs, unless you want to count Dwayne Bacon or the fossilized remains of Otto Porter. Then there wasn't really a serious out to talk of with the Magic.
Moving on here to the key player, and I know for a fact your answer is going to be Mo Bamba.
Oh, God. Trey Dalbert's comedy hour, ladies and gentlemen. Try the steak. It's Jalen Suggs. It's rare for a rookie to be a key player, but on this team, everything is going to be centered around him. I don't think there's, with all of the young players on this team, Jonathan Isaac could be a defensive player of the year one day, but I don't think he's a legitimate two-way star. The only player that has any chance of being a legitimate number 1 offensive option is Suggs. Personally, I'm not all that confident that he gets there. I think he maxes out as a John Wall light, and I'm talking not Houston John Wall, I'm talking 5 or 6 years ago at his peak, uber athletic Washington John Wall. And that player is still really, really good, but just not quite lock it in, all-star, all through his prime, not quite all-NBA level. I think Suggs will be very, very good, but if he's your best player, I think you max out at a 5 seed. So it'll be interesting to see what Orlando can produce around him both in talent that they've already got and draft picks in the next few years. Having said that, as the roster stands right now, he's the great white hope.
I'm super high on Jalen Suggs.
Yeah, I think he's going to be very good. I think the top 4, top 5, maybe even the top 6 or 7 in this draft are all going to be very, very good players. But again, there's no shame in being a guy that plays maybe 2 or 3 All-Star games in a career. That's an outstanding career. But if I'm just not as high on people who expect him to be the guy who leads Orlando back up to a top 2, top 3 seed. I think he can be a part of that team and a major part, but just not the main piece.
I think there's a little bit of untapped potential here with Suggs, just because this is a guy that's played football his whole life. He's never really truly focused on basketball full time since, just 1 year at Gonzaga.
Yeah. That's a good point. It'd be interesting to see how he goes as he gets full-time coaching. He'll change his body a little bit as well. I do love the way he marshals the court. He's a very, very good old-fashioned point guard in that sense. So if there's good talent around him, he could be the sort that could make that all mesh and take a team that is less than the sum of its parts to be better. But again, as a contender, and I might be wrong, we're talking about a guy who hasn't played a regular season game yet, but I don't think he's the guy to lead them to the promised land. Having said that, he has a very, very big chance of being the best player on this season's Magic.
Let's move into the X factor for the team. Mine's got to be Cole Anthony here. He's almost maybe the odd man out now that they get Suggs. They still have Markelle Fultz that, should be returning, or we kind of have an idea that he's at least a player at this point. Where the hell does that leave Cole Anthony? Because, other than maybe you hope he's Isaiah Thomas spark plug guy, I don't know what you really have here.
I think he's redundant. I really think he's redundant. Unless he can improve to be an ace shooter, an absolutely ace shooter, he might turn into
which he's never been that so far.
Exactly. If he can turn himself into an outstanding shooter, he could have the same career arc as what Devontae Graham's going through. Small, undersized, no defense, not necessarily a great playmaker, but turn himself from an average shooter into an outstanding one, and he's earning bucks because of it. That to me is Cole Anthony's best hope, but he's the odd man out here. My X factor is Wendell Carter Jr. He was obviously if you excuse the pun, the centerpiece of the trade with Vooch. It was meant to sort of invigorate his career a little bit, but his stats stayed remarkably stable from Chicago to Orlando.
Which shouldn't happen.
No, that's it. I would have expected a little bit of an uptick at least because he would have seen the ball more, but he stayed very it was almost like exactly the same, like tenths of a stat in all of his categories. He's in a situation now where he has to compete for minutes as well. We mentioned Robin Lopez, who probably should start if you're going on what they can do this season. But he won't start. We know that. But he is competing with Mo Bamba. And that's an interesting one because Bamba seems to perennially have potential. And the big thing is Carter's been brought in. Bamba is an Orlando draft pick. They have to be invested in making that draft pick work. So whether Bamba is force-fed minutes, and I'm no Bamba fan, but whether he's force-fed minutes that should go to Carter/Lopez, I don't know. Does Jamal Mosley, we don't know what he's like as a coach. Does he decide to play small and have a fair bit of Jonathan Isaac at the 5? There's a lot of different ways this could go. I think Carter could have a very, very good season, relative to where he has been anyway. But there's stumbling blocks in his way, and they won't necessarily be things that he can control. He's still only 22. He's in his 4th season. It feels like he should be older than that, like he should be 24, 25, but he's still only just gone 22. He is a baby.
It sounds like when you write your breakout preview article that Mo Bamba will be on the list here.
Breaking out to the Chinese league? The only place he's breaking out to. I don't see. I've never seen the potential in Bamba. I just think he's big. He's a very giant, long man who is relatively fluid. But just because you can run like a racehorse doesn't mean you're a racehorse. he's not a basketballer. But back to Carter, look, I think he could have a semi breakout year, but at the same time, it wouldn't surprise me with all the rotation pieces around him whether he treads water again.
Things that we are maybe looking forward to. We know the Magic are going to be a bad basketball team, but what sort of stands out here with Orlando?
There's nothing that really stands out.
Yeah, I don't have a great answer for you.
But that's partly what makes them, for the first time in a long time, interesting. Like, we knew what the Magic were for so long. Now we don't really know. You know, we've talked about Suggs, we've talked about Bamba and Carter. We haven't spoken about, we spoke about Cole Anthony. We touched on Fultz. We haven't spoken about, RJ Hampton, for instance. You know, what he could possibly be. The Wagner, both the Wagners, particularly Franz, who they've just drafted. What about Chuma Akiki? What's his ceiling? Yeah, there's all these young and really intriguing pieces in Orlando, and there's such a variance in what each of them could do. There are some veterans there as well that we know what they're going to produce. Terrence Ross, Gary Harris, MCW as a backup point guard, he could get buried as well, funnily enough. Etuan Moore as a shooter off the bench, which is a sneaky, nice pickup for them.
Cross Etuan Moore off your bingo cards if you guys are watching.
Now, I do like a lot of these players on this Orlando roster. Again, I don't think any of them are going to be genuine stars, but there's enough here that if they do happen to luck out in a draft pick or find a free agent who really likes Disney World, that they could really build something nice in Orlando. And it's been a long time, probably since Gordon and Fournier and Vooch were youngsters, that we've been able to say that.
Prediction for the season when it comes to the Magic, other than they're going to be a bad basketball team, I'm not sure what to even.
Funnily enough, like Vegas has them at 23. I actually think they might go past that. I've got them as 29, and I might be pushing the boat out a little bit here, but with so many good young players, if they can all just kind of click, they don't have to all bloom at once. But if a few of them can have hot streaks here and there, there's enough depth that if Jamal Mosley can handle his rotations well and pick which players are playing well and pull the reins on the ones who aren't, there's enough options that they might be able to just eke out games or just overwhelm you with raw talent and athleticism. You know, I think Orlando could win a lot of bench battles simply because they've got a lot of talent there. It's unfulfilled, but there is a lot of talent there on that second unit. They won't be.
My concern would be, I would want 100% Jonathan Isaac, that he's ready to go at 100% to be like, they're going to win more games than I think.
Well, part of this is based on Isaac being healthy, and that's no guarantee.
And he has to be.
Yeah, no player's a guarantee, but Isaac less than most. But I think, because Isaac will give them a defensive identity at the very least. Him and Okiki are great defenders already. I think Orlando will go past it. Like I said, 29 wins against Vegas's 23. It really could go belly up. I wouldn't be entirely shocked if they get 15 wins, but I'm backing them to go above that total. I'm backing them to be a really good, interesting, one of those teams that you don't necessarily mark on the calendar to watch, but if you happen to turn on the TV and they're there, you'll sit back and you'll watch it and you'll be intrigued. And after years of treading water in Orlando, that in itself is a win.
Well said. That is our Orlando Magic 2021-2022 season preview. Make sure to follow Jared on Twitter. That is hey_it's_JP, myself, Trey Dalbert. Thank you guys for watching.
Such a boring handle, Trey. Throw some underscores in there.
Nah, I think it'll stay that way. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Thank you guys for watching, and we will see you next time.